Well, good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody is doing well. We know that it is Friday, and so people have lots of wonderful, wonderful stuff to do. But I am definitely grateful that you have attended the session. Again, my name is Felicia Mason Edwards, and you'll learn a little bit more about me, but I am super excited that you are here and you are ready to have some good conversation around money and how to access money. So, we are going to go ahead and get started. What I will say, there's about 18 of y'all on the call. If you want to, since the group is a little bit smaller, if you have questions, you can go ahead and hopefully raise your hand and I will see them. If not, I definitely will make time at the end to answer any questions that you do have. So if you do have a burning question, feel free to raise your hand and we will try to answer that question. So I always like to kind of start off with a little bit about, did my slideshow go away? Okay. A little bit about what we'll go over today. So just going to do an introduction of myself, talk a little bit about preparing, because a lot of times we forget about the preparation for applying and looking for all types of money. Again, using data, because in our world, data drives decisions. And so we're also going to do a lot of talking about community outreach, because I think there's another way that you can look at accessing funding, because we kind of use the same old routes. And so hopefully we'll be able to think about new ways and access some new routes of funding. And then looking at various funding streams and then preparing for the proposal. And then I always like to leave a little something at the end. So who am I? Well, again, my name is Felicia Mason Edwards. I am a mother of three wonderful daughters, one which I tell people gave me the gift of my job. That was my first daughter. She was born 2 months early on April Fool's in the middle of a blizzard snowstorm. I was in Minnesota at the time. And I was in a coma for 5 days as soon as I gave birth. So I woke up 5 days later and did not realize I was a mother. So hence we have been on a journey ever since navigating systems. So that is why my passion is to help other families understand all of the systems that impact and have some sort of impact on the families, right? So that's kind of the goal. Currently, my role is the mental health director of peer support at Texas Health and Human Services. Super excited about that position. I oversee lots of programs and lots of money, millions and millions of dollars. I oversee that. One of the goals that we're trying to do is we're trying to get states across the country to have lived experience, a whole unit filled with people of lived experience in that organization. So whether that's the state, whether that's the city, whether that's the county. So everybody on our team has lived experience in something. So I happen to be a family partner. I'm also a clinician. Did marriage and family therapy counseling for many years and loved it. But I tell people, when life hits your house, you learn how to pivot. So having my daughter, she taught me how to pivot in a different direction and how to advocate for families in a different way. I also worked for Child Protective Services for 10 years. I ran their faith-based division and I also ran their foster and adopt recruitment as well. But got to work with a lot of people in the community, just understanding the impact of what foster care does on families, right? Just seeing that. And on the flip side of that, prior to that, I was a therapist for many of the CPS cases. So they would have to come see me after their court order from a judge that says, hey, you need to go see somebody about therapy, and it's put on their service plan. And I was one of those individuals. What I did say at the time is I thought that CPS was the dumbest people out there on the face of the planet, right? Like, why would you give people these same cookie cutter service plans? And this is not even why they're in here. Like, they're not in here for a drug related offense, but you want them to take UAs. And it's funny, be careful what you ask for, because the next couple of years I was working for them, right? And then got to see it from a different perspective, but also got to make some inroads as well. So, and then I was an executive director for a family homeless shelter, and did all kinds of fun stuff. Again, being community organizer and community engager. And also, I wrote my first grant at 14 for $25,000, which I got and received for the next 4 years after that as well. So, and probably one fun fact, because I always like to put a fun fact, I love to fish, y'all. Don't let the look fool you. I am an avid fisher woman, and I will outfish anybody, anywhere, anytime. So that is my favorite pastime. So that is just a little bit about who I am and what I am about and what I do. One of the things when we're talking about funding issues or challenges, these are the first things that I hear. Most of the time, when you say funding and accessing money and trying to figure out ways to have sustainability, all you hear is, you know what, Felicia, I don't have the time and I don't have the staff. And I totally get it because there today I'm like, do I have the time? Do I have staffing challenges? Who's going to do the work? But I also remind people that guess what? Time is money. And so we want to make sure that we create the time and create the space. And even if you're not the one to do it, that you get somebody on your team or you contract that service out. And then if you're having issues with staffing, thinking of creatively, how can I get additional staff without paying them? Right? We know sometimes our budgets don't allow. I would love to have, bunches and bunches of staff. I have a couple of staff right now. I'm actually in the process of hiring one more, but that'll be a team of three, right? Three additional staff other than myself. And we're a unit of 11 of people with lived experience. And again, we're a small unit of 11 out of 33,000 people at Texas Health and Human Services. So we got a long way to go. So when we understand the issue of staffing, yes, but we also want to make sure that we think creatively. If you need staff, well, maybe there's ways that you can have interns. Maybe there's different ways that you can partner with people to get and fill in some of those gaps. One of the biggest things that I think sometimes that we forget to do is the preparation in terms of when we are applying for things, right? So when we're asking for money, when we're reaching out to people saying, hey, this is a new program we want to start, some of the things I tell people to do is like, wait a minute, pump the brakes a little bit. One, look at a couple of things, ask yourself a couple of questions. One, look at the state of your organization today. As of today, what does it look like? Right? What is your organization? Sometimes people do this with their boards. I actually suggest that you do that with everybody, not just your board, but with your staff as well. Kind of have a brain session, just like looking at a process mapping session. And so looking at various ways and just thinking about, okay, what is it that we do that we like? And it could be different answers from different people. What is the thing that we're doing about what's about our program that we can say, you know what, we like that. We like serving families. We like that we could be a beacon of light and of hope in the community. And so list out those things so you can see it. But also on the flip side of that, what do you want to change? Because sometimes we have a lot of things that we like to do, and sometimes we stretch ourselves too thin, and then it goes back to that we don't have enough time and I don't have enough staffing because we're trying to do so much and be so much to everybody in our community. So realistically think about what are some of the things that we could change within our organization that makes sense, right? It may make sense. For example, if you say, you know what, we work with families ages 18 all the way up to 50. Great. You work with families that way. But what if you want to change and say, you know what, we're starting to see younger parents at 16 and at 14. Do we add those individuals to our mix? What about intergenerational families that all live together? So it's not just, mom, dad, or maybe one of them is a single parent. Maybe there's a single dad that's raising their child. But what if grandma, grandpa, aunties, nieces, nephews, are we providing services for them as well? Because they also make up that family unit. So again, thinking about what do you want to change about your organization and who is your target audience? Who are you targeting out there in your community for the services? Again, sometimes it changes based on the program, but sometimes it could be the same. And then what are the outcomes and what do you hope to achieve? Again, it goes back to some of that being data related, but what do you want families to gain by being a part of your program? Is it hope? Okay, what else? What are some other things that you want them to gain? Employment, maybe, maybe have a decreased involvement with their local child protective services agency, maybe have more access to mental health services. So it could be a variety of things, but really thinking about what do you hope that they achieve while being a part of your program? And then what problem in the community are you trying to solve? What is it are you trying to solve? Are you trying to decrease homelessness? Are you trying to, again, decrease involvement in child protective services in your area? Are you trying to decrease any referrals that families may get, not just from CPS, but from other organizations as well? Are you trying to increase school participation, grades? What are those things that you are trying to do and you hope to achieve? And that's the problem that you're trying to solve in your community. So really start to ask yourself lots and lots of questions. Why? Because data drives decisions. If you do not have the data, it does not exist. If people don't know and you cannot say what your data is for your organization, it's kind of like, well, are you really making an impact in the community if you don't have the data to back it up? So I always tell people, understand your data. Again, what are you trying to track? Sometimes we change what we're trying to track. I know sometimes that is also based on what kind of funding that comes into our doors. So we change based on the criteria of what we submitted for the grant, right? We totally get that. Who is your client base again? Going back to who are the people that you're serving? Is it a broad array or is it really, really narrow? Make sure that you're using quarterly and annual data. I know most of us pull by monthly, which is great as well, but usually in reports, they want to see kind of change over time. So you can show that typically in quarterly and annual data. And then most importantly, one of the things that we want to do is we want to monetize the impact, right? One of the things I tell people is think about two things. How much is it going to cost you to provide the services? And then can you show a cost savings based on the services that you're providing? So, for example, think about what it costs for one person to complete whatever your services are. What does that look like? What is that monetary impact? If you say, Felicia, we have one person that comes through our doors and it will cost us about $3,000 for them to finish the program. Or is it $5,000? And then in terms of thinking about finishing the program, what does finish mean? Does that mean what's the number of sessions that you have? How many times have you had to access resources on behalf of families? So it's really thinking in the granular sense because a lot of things are tied to money, right? We see positions are tied to money. I hear again, staff time. We don't have enough staff, Felicia. But if we start monetizing things, then we can accurately say, this is how many staff I need in order to make it happen. Sometimes we just kind of throw out numbers. We're like, okay, we'll do kind of a staffing ratio issue in there, but also really think about monetizing your impact and then showing how you are saving your state, your county, your city, how you're saving money. The one thing we can say is, hey, in Texas, we're saving behavioral health services a lot of money, along with child protective services a lot of money, because people are getting peer support and family peer support. We're saving money because they're not going into the state hospital system as much, so that's a cost savings. They're not going into CPS as much, so that's a cost savings. They're not having just re-hospitalization, not just state hospital, but going to the regular hospital for emergency rooms based on the crisis. So those are things that we can go to the legislature and say, hey, this is how much peer support is saving our state. It also gives you ammunition when you need to advocate for money. So thinking of those things, again, monetizing the impact, using your data, and then showing the cost. The next thing is really understand your community and what can you do with community outreach. Now, I know there's lots of people that say, Felicia, I don't have a position for that. You know what? I'm a community outreach person, and there are times that I feel like I am a politician, that I am in the community so much, just introducing myself, figuring out who people are, what are the services they're providing. Again, you have to know the services you're providing because I want everybody to know what their elevator speech is. So when you're reaching out to people in the community, that you know what you're talking about. One, you also have to learn how to best reach your community. What I realized when I was the executive director of a homeless shelter was they operated a building in the community, but never reached out to the community. Not one time. They didn't know the people across the street. They didn't know the organizations in their community, whether that was restaurants, businesses, whatever. They didn't know who they were. And so having to come in and I was like, you don't even know the people across the street. We got this huge building and nobody is talking to each other. What is going on? We got to start meeting people. I also didn't know at the time that the organization was $300,000 in the hole, right? They don't tell you that part in the interview process. But it's understanding, it's like, okay, well, now I have to really think creatively how to get money and how to get money quickly and who can I partner with. And so we know sometimes in our communities, the best way can be door knocking for some. Sometimes in other communities, it's coming to a community meeting and showing your face up. And it may not have anything to do with your program, but it's you connecting with your community to learn about what's happening. So if there's festivals or events, yes, we encourage you to be there so people can see you and they can know about what you do. But you have to reach them in a way. So if you know that you have lots of seniors in your community, and guess what? They don't like emails. They're not going to watch a TikTok video on your organization. That's okay. Then find strategies on ways to help best reach them in your community. And then again, going back to understanding your impact. What are you doing and what is the impact on your community? There's certain things that I always like to tell people is one, think about the broader impact of just, a national impact, but also a statewide impact, the citywide impact, countywide impact, and then using even getting down and narrowing it down to the zip code. We know some of you guys probably do more than one county in your area. So what is that impact? We happen to be the state, so we can say statewide impact. People love numbers, but I also tell people get down to the zip codes. What are the zip codes that you are around and you're providing services in those areas? Use that zip code analysis data so people can go, wow, in this zip code, you guys really are making an impact. It also allows you to kind of do some deep dives if there's other zip codes that are in your catchment area and you're like, wait a minute, we're not doing such a good job in these particular zip codes, but we're doing great in others. So thinking about those and again, ways that you can impact your community, and most importantly, leverage your partnerships, right? Relationships are key. We can all say that and it sounds really good on paper. Yeah, we got to build relationships, but it takes time to build relationships and it takes you opening your mouth to build relationship. And it takes you also going back, right? Because sometimes they may not get it the first time. You know how many times I've reintroduced myself to people because it's like, oh yeah, didn't I see you somewhere before? And you're like, yeah, let me tell you who I am. I'm Felicia and I'm with this organization. And so sometimes you have to do that, but really thinking in terms of the partnerships that you also already developed, how do you leverage them? There could be some great opportunities, not only for funding, but also really working with lots of stuff. For example, I partnered with organizations when I ran the homeless shelter that build housing. Why? Because I have a population of people that need housing, right? It's creative strategy. How can I do that? So when you build these apartment buildings, that I can get some of those units for these families that are transitioning out of homelessness, right? And so I want to make sure that we're doing that. Leveraging also based on what you need. There's lots of stuff that we need, not just money. There's all kinds of things that if you're doing kind of an analysis, a SWOT analysis of what your organization needs, what do you need? You need, you may need furniture because you just got into a brand new building. Guess what? There's furniture companies that want to donate furniture, especially at the end of the year. They can use it as a tax write-off. So there's ways that you can leverage partnerships from very simple things, but to very big things, again, based on your need. Additional strategies for outreach, thinking about how you create your story. Your story is your calling card. And so you want to create the story. You do not want somebody to create the story for you. Not at all. You want to take the lead as people within your organization to create the story. But what story are you creating? Is this something positive that says, hey, we're a great organization. We help so many people. It's wonderful. Things are going great. That's great. We want you to highlight that because only you can brag on you and we want you to brag on yourself. But we also want you to share the truth as well. It's like, hey, we need additional funding because we have an influx of families who need services. So what better way to say that story is that although we provide very great and very unique services, we still need additional funding because guess what? We're starting to see an increased need. Now, I don't know about you, but we know currently right now, probably all of our programs are going to see an increased need with just the stuff that is happening in our world today. So we want to make sure that we're creating the story, creating the need, and then highlighting the benefits of the program. What makes your program so great? What are benefits that families receive by going through your program? Yes, they receive hope. What are some other things that you're providing by being a part of your program? One, it could be, hey, we're the only thing in town. So that's a benefit that we're so unique. Our program is so different that nobody else is doing it in our town. So we want you to highlight that and create that as a part of your story. And then really speak to your target audience when you're doing outreach. Who are you looking to grab, right? So like, hey, if you want people for, you're recruiting more families or you're recruiting more board members, whatever, like speak to that target audience, because again, how you create your story will allow people to kind of come in to your organization. I always say it's very, very important that you have to invite people in. People don't know you exist if they're not invited, right? A lot of times we just kind of think of stuff, particularly sometimes if we're smaller, it's like, Felicia, I don't have a marketing department. I'm like, I got a marketing department at the state. I'm not sure you want our marketing department because we can't market the way that you all market. You guys got a different freedom to do things, right? So one, this is your way to shine and talk about yourself, but also thinking about creative strategies to invite people in. So whether you host tours or you're getting people more engaged, more involved in the process, it's just let you showcase all the wonderful work that you're doing. Because again, you're the one doing the work. It's a great opportunity to get not only the leadership, your board involved, but get all of your staff involved in this. Everybody should be excited about, hey, we want to showcase. I tell people all the time, I used to run the recruitment division at CPS, but everybody's a recruiter. I want everybody anywhere, it doesn't matter what position you have, to recruit for the agency, not just recruiting families to come in, but recruit people to just learn about what you do, because of, again, that could be an additional way to access money that you've never accessed before. So whether you're hosting tours or whether you're having different events within the community, it could be you host an event in the community, or maybe you're partnering with somebody else in the community to host events. We know it takes money to host things, and we totally get that. And so there may be opportunities that you say, hey, you know what, let me call so-and-so who's right in our area and we can host an event together. So thinking creatively of what those events look like. We know sometimes also people host dinners and trainings and all sorts of stuff, but really, I know we used to do the Benavon model back in the day, where you would have people host a table of 10 and invite their 10 friends, and then they would donate, and we'd have kind of one big fundraising event at the end of the year. So there's many different ways to invite people into your organization. Sometimes we're so busy doing the work that we just forget about the part, because it's like, oh, well, yeah, they're in. Wait a minute, we got families in here, but is that not good enough? Sometimes no, because a lot of people don't know what you do. And so just giving them a bird's eye view of, and it could be something simple. From 12 to 1, we host a tour every, second Friday of the month, right? It doesn't have to cost a heavy lift. I tell people, hey, you get a little fruit tray or something from Walmart or Target and put that in there. A lot of times Walmart or Target will donate that stuff because you're a community organization and you serve families. A lot of times they'll just give it to you for free or give it to you in a gift card. So there's ways to host those types of events. And again, invite the community in to see the wonderful work. And then you are telling your story that you have created with your team, with the families, and you're having family involvement in those stories as well. So who's going to help? Because here's the thing, again, we talked about staff time and time and then not having staff. And so who is going to help? So one of the biggest resources that you can help is ask your community for help. I had to ask the community. I didn't have a receptionist for a really long time. And I was like, you know what, can we get some people to just volunteer to just answer the phone? Because we just, we have to have somebody at the front desk. We have to have somebody answering these calls because people are needing help right now. Great way to do that. You know who I called? There was a volunteer hotline through United Way. I called them. They got us some volunteers. Also, some people at the senior center, great, lovely ladies that would come and say, hey, this is my volunteer hours that I want to spend. And we would have 4-hour blocks. It was wonderful. It met two things at one time. One, it met the need of me having to pay somebody up front. Eventually, I did get a stable receptionist, But in the beginning, we couldn't afford a stable receptionist. But it also gave people an opportunity to see what we did and how we made it an impact in the community. So really leverage your community partners. Another way to leverage is schools and universities. Use them. I know sometimes people say, oh Lord, I don't want to intern, Felicia. That's going to cost me more time and money to try to train them on what I want them to do and da da da. And I'm thinking about use them creatively. When you're looking at your organization, think about what are the gaps in my system that I'm missing, especially if you're small. I work for the state, so some of this stuff is, yes, we have a media department. When I didn't work for the state, I didn't have a media department. So it would have been great to connect with a university that has a media department to do videos for me, to do little TikToks. My kids are still trying to get me on TikTok. I'm not there yet, y'all. I'm just pray for me. I'm not there, right? Like I'm not there. I'm still kind of reserved. I'm like, I don't like to tell all my business in the street, but it's a great way to market because that's what people are looking at, and that's where they go to find information. Good, bad, or indifferent. That is where they go to find information. Are you on, YouTube? Like, where are you in the community? Go reach out to these schools and universities because they can help. They can also help with writing. There's a lot of stuff. Again, some people may have actual folks within your programs that all they do is do the grant writing and look for additional funding. Most people do not. So there are schools that will help send some of their either graduate students or undergraduate students that's what they are good at, writing. That's a perfect opportunity. So using your universities, your schools, all of that stuff for some of those things, think about accessing, and again, where your gaps are, what things that are you needing help with, and then accessing those universities. Also, the families you serve, they're going to be your biggest supporter. Why? Because they've been through your program. They knew what it was like. They know how you have helped, and then they can help advocate not just on, sharing the story, but also helping to fill in gaps that you may have. Using your families to be a part of your board, right? Not just saying, hey, using them as tokens because they don't want that either, but really valuing their input because they know what it's like to go through your services. We're pushing right now to make sure that Child Protective Services in our state has families on all of their advisory committees. Why? Because they know what it's like to go through their services. And so we want to make sure that families are involved in this process, not only to say, hey, this program is so great, but to really say, yeah, that's great, but there are also some changes that need to happen. But also, hey, here's how we're going to help as families who have been served, help them get to the next level, help your organization get to the next level. And of course, your board member and staff, right? Put your board to work. I always tell people also make sure you have the right people on your board. That's great if you have your family members. That is awesome. Sometimes people have more family members than other members on their board. Sometimes that can be a challenge when it's time to do the work. So we say, yes, use your family members, use whoever, use people that have been a part of your program, but really strategically think about, okay, do I need to have a lawyer on here? Do I need to have a real estate person on here? Do I need to have somebody that works for a bank on here? What are the things that you are needing help with? And then go find those people to sit on your board. And then most importantly, your family. They are going to be your biggest supporter in your life because you go home to them and you can talk to them about all of the stuff that happens, right? But they're your family. And so they want to support you in everything that you do. So using your family as one of the biggest supporters and the people that help. I use my daughters all the time. I love them dearly, but I will use them. Yes, I will use them. Matter of fact, they always make care packages for me. So I'm like, hey, we got 100 care packages, or we got this. So guess what? We're all on the floor making care packages. We had Hurricane Harvey devastate our community. A couple years ago, me and my daughters are out there swishing in rain boots, getting stuff out of an 18-wheeler truck to go deliver water to people who don't even have a roof on their house. That's what we do. That's what we do as a family. So my children know that, hey, oh, mom is in volunteer mode. There you go. Here we go. We're volunteering, we're helping because again, we're just as much a part of the community as they are a part of the community. And we want to make sure that we're doing our job. But again, don't underestimate the power of your family because your family also have connections with other things that will also be able to help support you financially and in other means. Also, outreach strategies. I talked a little bit about this already, but really thinking about where is your online presence, right? Sometimes we're so good at helping individual families, and we love that, and that's our niche, and that's where we are. But again, we need to tell people what we do. They need to be able to access us. So, is your website up to date? I know oftentimes I'll go to people's website and it hasn't been updated in 4 years, or I'll try to find a link or somebody to reach out to just find information. It doesn't work, or the information is old and outdated. They'll have data reports from 3 years ago, and you're like, what did you do last year? You're like, what's happening with that? Also, again, social media. I already talked a little bit about that, but using social media to your advantage, right? It's a great tool when used correctly. Sometimes we know it's not used correctly, but it is an awesome tool to get your information out there to the broader masses, right? So not just, again, people in your immediate catchment area. This is people all across, not only just your state, but across the country. It does not matter where you get money from, right? Some money has strings attached, some money does not. But if somebody over there in Brazil says, hey, I saw your social media post and I want to donate money, or somebody, somewhere else in Italy or Africa that says, you know what, I really believe in the mission that what you're doing and I want to give them that opportunity to give, but they don't know that you exist. And so you have to show that you exist. And then also tons of community events, right? Again, not just you hosting community events, but you being a part of those events. So where are you going in your community? We know that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So a lot of times we'll have our events in September's Recovery Month. It's also Suicide Prevention Month. And so that we have all of these kind of months that we celebrate or we highlight and say, okay, we want to highlight these things. But also think about what are some of the other maybe just smaller community events. Are you a part of your Cinco de Mayo? Are you a part of Juneteenth? Like, are you a part of those events? Are you a part of just regular, like weird festivals? We have the Eeyore Festival here in Austin. So that's a great opportunity to share information. We have pecan street festivals. We have, markets all over the place. So are you a part of those events in your community where people can visibly see that you are present, right? And then local media and outreach. Are you the one telling your story on television or on radio stations? And if so, when is the last time you shared your story? Because sometimes we'll do it as if it's a one and done. And it's like, okay, I did this, 2 or 3 years ago. And I'm like, okay, but haven't you guys grown in 2 or 3 years? Do you have new things to share? So it's a great way to reach out to the local media to say, here, we want to share our story. Why? Because every news segment, regardless of who they are, has a community section to that news segment. So it's a great way to showcase what you're doing. Radio stations, they're still in existence. Sometimes we forget about them, but local radio is where a lot of information is shared. Making sure that you're doing the touch points to local radio out and outreach, right? Because there's a lot of stuff. And a lot of it also kind of like the PBS station, there's just community radio. Like it may be smaller networks, but people are listening. So thinking about really strategic ways to use these resources and strategies, because again, these people also could be tied to funding opportunities. So in terms of funding, what does it look like, right? So we know our current state right now, where it's a roll of the dice. We don't know what it looks like right now. We're hoping that everything, it opens back up and we kind of get back on track, but we really don't know. But we do know that, okay, there's still grants available that's still out there. Maybe not a bunch of federal grants through SAMHSA, but there's still other stuff that's available. So think of ways that you can connect through your state, through your county, through your city, federal, whatever way, but think of those creative ways on where you can go. Sometimes, particularly because a lot of times we're a small organization, and even a state organization, we rely on all of these funding streams as well, right? So even though we're a state, we still rely on those things because we do have some that are county specific, some programs that are county specific, and some that are city specific. So think in terms of, hey, if this or when this, I always say if and when, if this runs out or when this runs out, because we don't give a lot of continual money. I think we've been blessed for a lot of stuff to happen for a 5-year grant period, and then you can renew and get an additional 5. But sometimes we get so comfortable as organizations with those funding streams that we forget to look for new funding because we got comfortable. And we never know when things will stop or when the weather will change and it'll shift the tide on where money is coming from. So I always want to encourage people to really think differently about just holding on to this state, county, city, and federal money, but also look elsewhere for money because there's tons of opportunities to do so. I always tell people leverage your bank system. Every community that we know has banks in their community. Every single one. So are you talking to banks? One of the things that we did for one of our after school program is, hey, we went to the local bank that was literally less than a mile from our organization and said, hey, we want you to sponsor our kids to go to college. And they were like, well, how do you want us to do that? And we're like, we don't know. We just had the idea. So what can we do to partner to figure it out, right? Like, how can we figure this out? And so what we came up with is that they would match our dollars, dollar for dollar, for the time that young people spent going to the computer lab and accessing resources and participating in site visits and going to college campus tours. And they matched it dollar for dollar. Now, it was a great win for them because they can put everywhere, which they did. They showcased like, hey, we are helping to fund kids go from high school to college and continue their education. So of course it is bragging rights for them, but also it's bragging rights for us because it's like, you know what? We didn't have a lot of money, but they helped front some of the money in the beginning, and then we did a match for match. So it's a great way to think about banks differently. Some banks will just, because there's a philanthropist arm to the bank as well, some banks will just write you a check and say, you know what, hey, you need this, we believe in your mission, boom, here's a check, right? So how many banks do you have in your community? It's also great to think about, investment opportunities. One of the things we want is sustainability. We don't want to just be in the same position all the time. Banks can do that as well. Think of creative strategies of like, okay, what is the longevity of your organization? We want to know how we can help you be sustainable in our community because guess what? We're in the community here with you. Also foundations. Now, most of you know about obviously the grants and then the foundations and what that looks like. But those are key elements that most of us, we do reach out in some capacity. We know sometimes, again, the application process can be arduous. We know that can be the thing, but it's a tool to use. But don't get caught up just on, again, state and then foundational money, right? Sometimes we do, but that's not it. And then definitely community organizations, because there's organizations in your community that still give money. And so are you tapping into those resources? And then most importantly, what I call most importantly is just donations and individual giving, right? There are folks who want to give money, but they don't know to give it to you because they have not heard your story, right? They have not seen what is happening in the community and didn't know maybe that you even exist. And so again, a lot of those individual donations don't come with strings attached. Other things do. We know that the grants and foundations come with strings. And so it's a great way to get people involved and invested. And it's a great way to get your whole team involved, invested. One of the great things that I was part of being a board on was they made all the board members call people who had given money just to say thank you. I wasn't doing even an ask for additional money. It was to just say, thank you so much for, giving us as an organization money. This is how your money has impacted this organization and the families that we're serving, right? Just a simple call. It was 2 to 3 minutes. Sometimes people will want to talk longer, but it was very, very simple. We also got staff involvement because sometimes the staff, we would have little postcards, right? And then just have the staff sign their name. Thank you so much. And with their signature, and that's it. So it allows opportunities to get a lot of people involved, but individual donation is something that we kind of think about it and we'll say, oh yeah, we'll give some individual donations, whether it's $5 or $100, but they could be a key to success because again, they're networking with their family members and their other organizations that they are a part of as well. So at the federal level, here's some of the grants that obviously most of you probably already know. Again, grants.gov, USA.gov, and of course SAMHSA, and we will see, because I think they're trying to change the name of that as well, and we'll see how that progresses over time. At the national level, of course, you got tons of foundations. You got the private community and then the corporate ones. I always say, look for those people that are in alignment with what you do, right? Like, we don't want to, and we don't want you all to write grants just to try to fit into a box if that's not the box that you need to fit in. We want you to be, again, to be able to share your story and figure out which one of these foundations and grants and state funding fits in what you are already doing. What typically tends to happen is people will see an opportunity to apply for something, so then they'll try to force themselves into this box to fit the criteria of what this organization is asking for. I don't want you to have to do that. I don't want you to have to change what you're doing unless you want to do that as an individual and as a community, to say, hey, you know what, we need to change based on the times and based on kind of the demographics of what is happening in our community. We need to shift a little bit, but I don't want you to get pulled into trying to shift to try to fit in a box of what the criteria is for a grant. So we know, again, lots of giving. I always like to stress people too, corporate giving, right? Every kind of most of the corporations have a philanthropy arm to them as well. So what are you doing to reach out to them? If you know that sometimes we have soccer moms and dads, and it's like, hey, we all need new cleats, and sometimes there may be families that can't afford it, right? Like, how can we connect to corporate foundations? All of us, well, most of our states have some sort of sports team, whether it's baseball, basketball, football. Some of us, like Big Texas, we have more than one in some areas. And so there's ways to connect with those organizations, but other corporations. It's like there's 3M, there's all these corporations out there that are doing what they do, making, 3M tape and all sorts of other kind of cool inventions, but they also have that arm that is really about community and community engagement. So how have you reached out to them to also access different ways and different fundings? Again, I always start with thinking about the local level. So what is already in your community? What are those community organizations? What are those social groups? I tell people all the time, man, sororities, fraternities, like, look for those entities. What are those places that are already kind of doing things in the community that also has a philanthropist arm? They can write checks. They'll also come out and bring groups of people to donate. They can also have a volunteer component to what they do as well. So you may need volunteers, and that's a great way to pull different resources. Also huge on faith-based groups. Again, I used to run the faith-based division at CPS, and I would go out to talk to tons of people, whether it's a Muslim mosque, a Jewish temple, a Christian church, whether it's Catholic, all of the things, non-denominational. My goal was to engage them on what the need was. Here's the thing. When you tell people, money will come, right? But you have to tell them your story. So I was able to get anything I needed, but I had to tell what that need was. I had to say, this is how many families we serve, but we want to serve twice as many next year. Help us do that. And I had to be able to say and have credibility, not only as myself as the person talking, but also my organization. We have to be credible. So there's faith-based groups that are willing to give money. I have gotten $10,000 checks before, huge amounts, even bigger than that, checks before, from organizations when they hear the pitch and they hear the need. Why? Because most of them want to help children and families. That is the mission of what they all are called to do. So think about those organizations in your community that can help you do those things. And again, a lot of that money is unencumbered. You don't have to do anything. But what I always do when I do get that money is I go back to that same faith group, one, and just not only thank them, but also give them updated data and information about how the money that they have given to us, how we use that money, and how many families and lives that we change. So I do make sure a point to do that. And then now, like, when you're in the preparation status, right? So you're done a lot of outreach. And again, I will also say, in your community, reach out to your state and local representatives as well as your senators, right? They have a wealth of knowledge. Sometimes they also have money and resources that you can tap into. So those are also people thinking about in terms of where should I go access that can be movers and shakers, but also that can connect you to people. Sometimes they may not be the best connector as far as like, okay, well, this is not really, my wheelhouse. Social services isn't necessarily my department. Somebody else runs that area. And so I can connect you to their senator. But usually when you talk again about children and families, you will find a sweet spot, right? Because people want to make sure that kids and families are safe, right? And so there's a way to talk to them and get them involved in what you're doing. Maybe it's inviting them to a tour, inviting them to come and speak at an event. Get them involved so they can help you get involved. So again, preparing for the proposal. I always like to make sure that people know, make sure you have all your documentation ready. Depending on what types of things that you are applying for, what organizations, some of them will have like a 2-page application. Some of them have a 25-page application. Some of them have all sorts of different pages in between their application, but know where you can find all your information. Know your 501(c)(3) status if that is what your organization is. Make sure you understand your budget and your budget is accurate. Sometimes we like to put a lot of fluff in our budget in case something happens. It's the in case stage. As I always say, in case something happened, I need to put a fluff. But know your budget and know what things are costing you to do. Again, monetize what you do. Show your data. Again, back to that. Make sure you understand and are very clear about your target population, what your programs are, the history of your programs. All of that is going to come into play in your staffing and testimonials, right? You have to be on the ready at all times. Again, always being on the ready with, I tell people all the time, I practice still in front of the mirror when I do presentations. Why? Because I talk super fast. And I still do inadvertently, and I still need to practice, right? Just to make sure that I'm talking slow enough where people can hear. So I always remind people again, does your mission align with the funder? Sometimes it does not, right? And that is okay. But if it does, then that is an opportunity. And also, I remind people to make sure that you are practicing your elevator pitch, because sometimes you only get 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and I usually have a 10-minute in there. But if all I have is 2 minutes to grab somebody's attention, then I need to make that 2 minutes the most impactful 2 minutes of my life and the person that I'm talking to, right? I need to make it impactful. I need to share the story. I need to highlight the data, and I need to tell them what the need is. All of that in a couple of minutes. So make sure that you are practicing what that is. So again, next step is like after you've kind of done that pre-work in the beginning, thought about, is this what I like to do? Are these the areas I want to change? You got to get your documentation ready. You know what story that you're going to tell. You already know that the missions that you are aligned with make sense to you and your organization. And then you got to find the help, right? So that is something that you do. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. But also, I always like to tell people now that it's time to get ready to do, right? It's the action part of doing that. So you've done all that you can do, and here's the action part. But in all of that, what I do like to remind people is that you got to take care of yourself. I know sometimes it's small. I know I used to operate kind of a smaller organization, and I would do everything. I would sometimes be the receptionist. I would sometimes go and transport people here. I would do all of this stuff and be a part of, the board, and have to come back and go pick up my kids from school and go do all of these things, right? I would have to do a lot of that. Self-care is important. And I love this because it's like, it's not selfish. This quote, it's not selfish. Sometimes we think it's selfish, but it really is not selfish, right? We cannot nurture others from a dry well. That is why we have to remember to do that, because we have to continue to do what we need to do for the organization that we're in. We need to take care of our own needs first. Then we can give from our supply, or from our surplus or abundance. And that's right. That's why they tell you on the plane. What do they tell you? Put the oxygen mask on yourself. Now, I already know some of y'all are mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, nieces and nephews and cousins. What do? We put the mask on our children sitting next to us, or whoever else is sitting next to us that we see needs assistance. And while we're up here dying because we're trying to put it on our kids, what happens to us? We need to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves in all of this as well. And then again, I always tell people sometimes self-care is way more than a pampering plan, because they'll tell you, oh, just go take a hot bath or go get your nails done. And I'm like, I don't want to get my nails done. It takes 2.5 hours and they file them down and it hurts. That's not my self-care routine. It may be yours, and that's okay. But take small minutes of your day. Also learn how to say a healthy no, because sometimes we take on more than we can chew, and we do that. And then we have to do a better job sometimes of just balancing that home work life balance, right? I have to do that. I've learned lately as I get older, I'm not as people always say, oh, you look really young. And I'm like, no, 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 I'm older than that. Give me my credit. Please give me my credit for being alive. But I've noticed my health is different. And so we got to take care of our health as well. And we can't, again, care for others if we don't take care of ourselves. And for me, spirituality and the spiritual component is really big. And then definitely really making sure that I am scheduling and looking at my time and making it matter and making it count. Here's a quick thing I always like to share with people. It's just a quick, simple self-care plan. Again, this will be in there, and I can use this as an attachment as well. I can send as an attachment as a resource. But what am I going to do in the mind, body, and spirit category? Who are the people that are going to support me, and then what do I want to accomplish? So other than just the job piece, what do you want to accomplish out of life? Right? I went to Africa for 3 weeks recently, just got back not too long ago. And what I learned is it shifted what I wanted to accomplish after being there and being with people and in community. It shifts. And so think about this. This is something you can do weekly, monthly, quarterly, however you want to do it, but just something to really think about and to make sure that you are taking time for yourself and making sure that you are whole and healthy, even before writing the next grant application, right? And so I always like to end, are there any questions? And I will stop sharing so I can see you as well. But I want to make sure that you think again creatively about how you access resources. It's not just what I call the usual suspects. It is more than that, right? Think about creative strategies of how you can use people and leverage the people that you're working with to help provide those resources for you as well. So I'm going to look in the chat to see if I have any questions. But if I don't, you're more than welcome to raise your hand or take your hand or yourself off of mute.
Lisa, quick question for me. Did you include
Uh-huh.
that self-care worksheet in your?
Yes.
Okay.
I will do that. I will do that.
They will receive that.
Yes, yes, yes. I will definitely do that. I see some of you guys have shared in the chat about just some of the successes that you've had, and you said you find inviting families and staff to share their success stories at events is a great way to promote organizations and programs. Absolutely. We do it all the time. And again, not in a tokenistic way. We just want people to be able to share how the work that we're doing has impacted them, right? And we never know until they even tell us what that looks like. We want to hear that as well. We sometimes even put that information in videos, so we have it cataloged and archived and we can show it to people as well. And I saw somebody said that they have students from ASU as right, come take photos and videos. Absolutely. Yes. They're free. They're great. It's wonderful to use. Yes, Miss Daisy, you can take yourself off mute.
I'm so excited to get this information today. I have been working in my community for 22 years, and you often run out of ways to engage the community. And I'm always looking for ideas to continue to connect with the schools, the stakeholders, and the parents. And so these were some great ideas. I really feel like I'm ready to set go, ready to go and try to implement the things I found in the chat and the things you shared. So continue to do the work that you do. And I appreciate all of the information.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate, again, all of you guys for coming. I know this is a Friday, and I know Fridays are hard to even come to conferences. So I know, just thank you, one, for being here. But again, there's tons of creative strategies on how to access money. I always tell people, don't just look for the usual suspects ways. Finds different ways to connect with people in community. And again, once you start sharing what you do, it's a great opportunity for people to go, you know what, how can we help you? I remember one time didn't even know it, but I went to see Lion King when it first came out. It was the first premiere date years ago, and the first date was in Minneapolis, Minnesota. At the intermission, I didn't realize the gentleman sitting next to me just struck up a conversation, and we're just talking about everything. And he goes, well, what do you do? So I explained my little pitch, right? Here's my pitch. And then I said, well, what do you do? He goes, I'm the general manager of Disney. And I'm like, you're sitting next to me. You're not in the front row. And he's like, nope, me and my wife, we're here. And he said, I'm really interested in what you're doing. So, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you don't even live here and you're interested in what we're doing. So again, you never know who is in your presence. And that's why I say you always have to stay ready so you don't have to get ready, right? Same thing in sports and basketball and football and volleyball and everything else. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And again, this is something that everybody in the organization can do.
And I love the fact that you said don't even despise the individual giver, because saying thanks to that person and them sharing your story can be, such a blessing as well. So thank you for
Absolutely.
stating that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we found too is even those small grannies that were given, probably from their Social Security pension or something, guess what? Sometimes when some of them passed away, they entrusted us with money, right? Because based on their relationship and just basing on calling them, they knew they can expect a call from somebody that just says, thank you. Again, I'm not even asking you for money at this pitch. I'm thanking you for what you already gave. And so I think there's ways to do that. And again, just in the community, just making sure that it happens. And Stephanie, I see your hand.
Hi, yes. So I'm a parent support partner, and I have noticed there are more organizations that are utilizing insurance for billing and services. So if there's an organization that is not tied in with like a medical network, do you have any suggestions on how to bridge that funding if the organization doesn't really have a department itself that bills insurance and utilizes those other sources for finding and helping with services?
So everything I just told you, you can do all of this stuff because none of this is Medicaid. It has nothing to do with Medicaid, right? So we're in Texas. We just got a Medicaid family partner thing here as well, family for our family peers. We're super excited, but we didn't have it for years. And so there's different, again, creative strategies based on what your organization, your need is, what your niche is, but then also based on your community. So like, what are the things that you're already doing? And then thinking about ways that you can access and reach out to people to say, you know what, I need you to fund, 2 new staff going through the certification class, or I need you to fund these 10 families. Can you fund 10 families? Okay, but you have to know what that looks like, right? I always tell people, if you're going to be in the family business and operation, you got to know what it costs for one family to go through your program. So understanding that and then using that almost as a pitch to say, hey, again, we serve this many people, but this year we want to serve this many people. We can't do that without your help. Here's what it costs to serve a family of 4 or 2 or 3. Here's what it costs. Here's ways that you can connect. So again, it doesn't have anything to do. You don't have to worry about Medicaid funding if your organization chooses not to. That could be a way they could access money, but it's okay because there's a lot of organizations who do not provide Medicaid funding. A lot of our peer-run organizations here in Texas don't bill Medicaid, but they also reach out to their community in again, work smarter, not harder, but partner better way. If you partner better with people, you don't have to work harder. You're just working smarter. And then you can find access to resources that those people that you're partnering with almost always have too as well.